There we go. That's working.
There we go.
That's working. Hello, America. No. Hello, world.
Hello, world.
Hello, world. And welcome to our podcast. We're two pals with different viewpoints and thoughts who really don't know much, discuss news, politics, conspiracy theories, and much, much more. One's a genius, the other's an idiot. Or are they both idiots?
Or are they both geniuses?
You be the judge. Now, live from Zak's world in Central Florida, welcome to Political No-Brainer. Your host, to your very right, and always right, is Zak, a.k.a. Big Daddy. And to your left, a true libetard.
Die-hard libetard.
Die-hard.
Die-hard.
It's
And-
Jeff the Rabu.
But enough with those pleasantries. We have a special guest
Special
today.
guest, the amazing L.A.
The genius.
She is the
No
genius.
doubt, undoubtedly.
Today, guys,
We
we're
have
both
a-
idiots, and we got the super genius with us.
Yes, there's no
Right.
confusion.
My wife, I married way up. In case you didn't know, you got to look at the camera sometimes there. Say hi. There
Say
you
hi.
go.
Hi, America.
Hi, world.
Hi, world.
Hi, world.
We're worldwide.
We're
Worldwide.
On the World
Check us
Wide
out.
Web.
We're on Spotify.
And we have a new button with us today.
Right.
Yeah, it's the BS button. Anytime he talks about the great things Joe's done, it's the BS that comes out.
They hit the button together
It's like the golden button on the,
in marital unity.
what's that?
America's Got
America's Got Talent. They
The
hit the golden
gong.
buzzer.
The gong. Remember the
Golden
gong
buzzer.
show? I remember the
Yes.
gong show.
So today with our special guest, we have a very, very great topic to discuss because she's an expert in the field, far more experienced than us. Although, Jeff, you've got some great points you want to discuss with her.
I do,
I'm
but I
actually
want to
going to
hear
be
her
like the
points.
moderator.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit back and no, I don't shut up.
No,
No,
Zach.
never me.
No.
No.
That
But
would be
Lorianne's been a school teacher for 17 years, 18 years. And she has her master's degree in secondary education from Phoenix,
Yes, University.
University of Phoenix, and she has her bachelor's of education English major from University of Iowa.
What?
Iowa.
Oh,
Go Hawkeyes.
oh.
So
All right.
we're going to talk about education today. No Orange Man, no Sleepy Joe. I'm sure they'll get brought up.
They
Neither
will.
of us.
They will.
We're not even talk about the border.
If you
No,
want to talk
no.
about the demise of education, it's going to be brought up. Because
Yes.
when the government got involved, education fell through the.
But that's a good point. Where is the government at this moment in time as far as education? Not that they're...
Well, let's go back to when I saw where education started to take a dip, which was in 2010, when I was told that this new Common Core was going to be all the rage. So, like everything the government does, they want to sell you on how great it's going to be. So the premise was a 10th grader in Florida in their English class is going to be learning the exact same thing a 10th grader in California is going to be learning. So that way, when people move, they don't miss a beat. So it sounded good in theory, but I just didn't buy it. And I started researching it and I started researching it. And when you peel back the layers, you find out that this whole Common Core was a part of what's called the Agenda 21, which was brought up in the United Nations.
So what was Agenda 21?
Ooh, there's a rabbit hole to go down.
Let's start.
The Agenda 21 is basically how the UN was trying to infiltrate the United States. So if they could get into our educational system, then they could start finagling their way in, which they did. I mean, you have kids. Have you not seen the way they do math? It's ridiculous.
Well, I do remember they called it, when my kids were in Montverde, they started doing Shanghai math. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
Yeah.
And I thought what was interesting was my kids were struggling. My wife and I were struggling to even find explanations on Google to help them through their struggles.
And your
And
children
one
are
day,
Asian. They're like
and one
geniuses.
day, I walk in to just pick one of the kids up, and I hear the administrators talking about how they don't understand Shanghai math. So I didn't understand why they decided to take it on as the whole
Was
math.
that part of Common Core?
No, I don't think that was. But in the public school system, like when my kids
Mount
started
Verde is
bringing
not. Mount Verde is a private school.
Private school,
okay.
right?
yeah.
So when my kids started bringing their math home, it was like simple multiplication, like 27 times 4. And I'm like, oh, you just do this. I'm like, no, you have to break out the 10s and you have to separate the 1s. And so something that should have taken like 3 steps now takes them 7.
And that was supposed to be taught across the country, right?
Yes. Yes.
And that was the phenomenon of it all, is that you would be doing the same thing over and over again.
They wanted they wanted all the kids to have equal opportunities, right? So everyone's learning the same. I actually taught honors class. So they were actually considering getting away of honors and AP because they wanted everyone to be equal. Well, my favorite genre to teach in high school is dystopian literature. And equality is like the F word. When a government comes and tells you that they want everyone to be equal, we should be scared. We should be scared, because what does that mean? So you see shows like The Hunger Games, Divergent, all of these things. What does equality look like?
1984.
Everyone dressing the same, no one thinking outside the box, and keeping everyone down. So I started telling my honors class this, and I had one kid raise his hand and he goes, "Hold up. If everyone's equal, who's picking up my garbage?"
Well, I guess when they say equal, it's that getting an equal education, which was
right. But
another.
What does that mean? So he wants.
But
for him,
from what
he's trying to be the best. He
Right.
wants to excel. He wants to be the best. What do you mean they're going to make me equal? I don't want to be equal. I want to.
But don't
compete.
they in a dystopian society test you according to your level of smartness? So, all right, this kid is a genius, so he's going to be a brain surgeon, and this one's not so he's going to be a garbage man.
You know, every dystopian novel, fictional novel, is based on some truth. Like 1984, when he wrote that in 1948, all he did was twist the numbers, and he called it 1984. When he talked about a government watching your every move, that was probably unheard of in 1948, but it's pretty real today.
Well, government
we'll talk about
pretty
that.
real today.
I don't know if you heard about the bill that Trudeau, thank God we don't live in Canada, is trying to pass.
But that would be Trudeau in Canada.
But imagine if they do it, then it might leak over to America.
No, America's got a lot of independent thinkers. So that's just like what we're getting at is you've got a kid who literally says, "I don't like this system of everybody being equal." And you've got a teacher that says, "You're right." So you've got an open forum in America.
Right.
So, yeah, things go wrong.
But they used to have an open forum in China.
Well, they don't any longer.
No.
Well, and my kids used to tell me all the time, they're like, "How come I was the only one speaking out against it?" I'm like, "Because I'm not drinking."
Yeah, but that's another thing that points to the opportunity in America. Just say you spoke out against it and your administrators lashed out against you and you got fired. Well, you'll get another job. No, but I'm saying if you did, but you'll get another job.
Well, she did speak out against it at one of her schools.
Well, I know I didn't speak out against that.
No,
I spoke
testing.
Out. So, now we're jumping forward to here we are now. Orange County has completely changed its grading system. No kid gets a 0 anymore.
Right.
No kid gets a 0. So if you never show up to my class, you automatically get a 50%. Okay. So now this guy over here, he shows up maybe once a week and he'll put his name on a piece of paper and maybe answer 1 or 2 questions.
He gets higher than 50?
Right. So normally if I graded that the way it should be graded, it'd be, if it was 10 questions and he answered 2, he'd get a 20%. But you're getting a 50% for not even showing up. So now I got to give him a 60 or a 70% because at least he did something. And now kids are passing because they've put their name on a paper and scribbled some stuff down and handed it in without even thinking. I actually had a kid tell me, "I'm not here to learn, just give me my diploma."
Well, though there is reason to believe that this is a troubled kid that doesn't have much of a home life. Let me just think out loud for a moment.
Not a kid.
But then he says he's strongly believing with a diploma he can ultimately get into a community college.
No, he has no intentions of going to college.
That's usually the logic is at some point, most kids have faith in the fact that they'll get their shit together at some point.
And when was the last time you stepped into a public high school?
I still think because there's still that feeling of, especially in America.
My daughter is a rarity.
No, some kids come around. I mean, I've worked in restaurants where the kids were hopeless, and I see them later on in the years, and they're doing a lot better.
Well, yeah, look, as they get older and grow up and realize, all right, I'm an idiot, I need to fix this.
Hence the logic.
But then I also have friends I went to high school with who were pumping gas last time I was back.
Right, but there is a logic that if they get their GED signed off by Lorianne, the teacher, and the administrators.
She has a GED, but it's high school.
High school, if they get their high school diploma, that's better than having a GED later on in life. They have that
no,
logic.
a GED and high school diploma are now equal.
They are?
Yeah, GED and high
The
school.
military
diploma.
used to not take you if you had your GED. You
Now
just
they
had a
are.
high school diploma. Now they see it as both.
Is that just the
And
military?
actually, the Navy, if you can pass the ASVAB military test
They'll take
at a
you
certain
without
score,
one
they'll
now.
take you without a GED or a diploma, which was unheard of.
Well, that's just an adaptation they decided to. That's not. They may need people.
Well, the big wig in the Navy wears a dress, so and it's a guy.
But I don't think it started with him, did it?
I don't know. I'm not
I don't
sure.
know. I don't know the
But-
time.
I like to throw that in there, though.
I've got
do you wear
all
a dress
sorts
at
of
work?
stories to
Yeah, we
tell.
want to hear more though.
I've got
But-
all
but-
sorts of
oh,
stories to tell.
One of the favorite ones that I heard was she was telling one of her students, like, you need to work on your grades and get this better. What are you going to do in life? He says, government's going to take care of me. They send me
Oh,
my
yeah.
check. I get my Obama phone. The government will take care of me.
Yeah.
But
Now, I say
And-
this.
wait.
I say this
It was-
without letting. Hold on.
Okay.
I say this without letting anybody know. What color do you think he was? Oh, Zach, you're racist.
no, I didn't answer the question.
You're racist. No, you thought it. He was white.
He's white.
No, I don't doubt it.
I'm just
But
saying, not saying like the black kid would say that. I'm just saying it's kind of shocking.
So I
that
always
they all
say,
live in that
whenever I
mentality.
get those examples, I always point out there's corporate welfare and there's personal welfare. So, for example, and I know we said we're going to kind of stay away. During the last few years, we've passed $1.5 trillion corporate tax cut. The idea was
New York.
that would lift business up to new heights. And even economists said right now there's no new heights for business. The only thing it's really going to do is create mergers and acquisitions, which actually generally cost jobs, not create jobs. There's going to be share buybacks, so companies are going to buy their own shares because they're going to believe they're undervalued. But it really didn't do much for the economy. So that's what I call corporate welfare. Then there's personal welfare. And I always point this out because it's important that kid said that. And there's this adamant opposition to that kind of thinking. But the reality is, no matter if you pick red or blue, personal welfare is a big part of our economy. So when you feel like, and again, I'm not picking presidents, but if there's a president that says, I'm willing to shut the government down, affluent people quiver because they know for a fact if food stamps were to stop arriving at people's homes, stocks that are in their money markets and their retirement funds like Walmart will plummet. Because that's I don't know what the percentage of business is that Walmart grocery stores are doing from EBT cards, but it's not a small percentage.
So a lot of my territory is in the hood, and most convenience stores, big bold letters, we take EBT,
right?
Food stamps.
And 7-Eleven does too,
because they know that they're making.
That's
money.
a big portion of their business. So
I always thought EBT was for your necessities. Milk, eggs. No, they can buy whatever they want. Steak.
A lot of what they want, not dog food, you can buy a lot.
Smokes on it.
No, cigarettes. No, absolutely positive.
Weed?
No. So there's that. This kid makes this statement. People repeat this kid's statement.
Mind you, Lorianne, the majority of her education career that I've been with her has been in inner city rough schools.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there are affluent schools who you wouldn't hear that, but she worked in a very affluent school down in Jupiter.
Mm-hmm.
And then you dealt with the opposite end of the spectrum, whereas don't talk to me, my Bentley and driver's pulling up,
But that's an issue as well. Now, there was everything when it comes to, did you pick red, did you pick blue? There's some hypocrisy of it all. I always said unemployment should be a bridge loan. I've never believed people should just be paid to be unemployed. I understand.
Just like minimum wage should not be the job for your life.
It shouldn't be, but then there's those examples. Just one I read the other day on social media. A guy said, I never thought this would be my one and only job. He's been with McDonald's 50 years. He took it as a minimum wage job just to get through high school. He became an owner-operator. He owns 31 stores. Owner-operator. I don't know how it works. He doesn't own the buildings, but he owns the business.
Right.
Averages $400,000 a year per unit. So that's $12.4 million. He took an hourly job. He had parents that showed him how to be professional in whatever you do. He may have gone to school during his beginnings of his career.
And that shows that he probably had good leadership at the job that taught him.
That shows he had good parents.
That too.
Right.
Yeah. No.
There's a lot of kids lacking that.
How many kids get a job at McDonald's, and let's not knock McDonald's, any fast food restaurant, and the managers don't care. They just don't, and they quit and then they move on to something else. But you get under a good wing of a good manager.
Teaching accountability to kids. I'm a stickler for being on time, and that used to matter. Like if kids were tardy, then they get, they get written up, and 3 tardies meant a detention. Schools don't even enforce that anymore. So I get kids who come late every day. Do you know how frustrating it is to try to teach a class and your door is revolving with kids coming in all the time, and they don't care. They don't care that they're 15, 20, 30 minutes late, or they show up the last 5 minutes of class. There's no accountability for that.
Isn't your principal's kid late all the time?
So when I went to school, the teachers did have that problem. They said exactly that. They started locking the door when the bell rang.
But it doesn't matter. You still have to let them in.
No, right. When we went to school,
So my point is, my own son, when he was going to high school at the school that I was teaching at, I would complain about there's no accountability. Well, then he gets his first job after high school, or after he becomes a welder. He gets his welding degree, and he goes and he gets a job. And unbeknownst to me, like, I don't know, I see him get up and I see him leave, but he was showing up 10, 15 minutes late a couple of mornings, didn't realize he was getting written up. And then he did it like a 4th time, and they were like, "You're done." And he's like, "What?" And they're like, "You're fired." And he's like, "What for?" And they're like, "Because you're showing up late." He goes, "It's like 10 minutes.
Right, but he was conditioned in school to believe it's okay.
What big deal? It's 10 minutes. So that's what I'm saying. So we as the educational system are not holding kids accountable. I used to be like, it said in my syllabus, like I assigned a project, it was due on the due date. And I put in the syllabus, short of your mother bringing me a death certificate, it is due. I don't care if you're sick, you bring it to school, you email me, you get it to me. Because my point is, if you're my boss and you tell me I have to have a presentation ready for you by Friday because you have a client coming in, and I don't get it to you on Friday, and I show up on Monday and go, "Oh, by the way, here's that project," but the client already showed up. Do you want my project?
No, but they don't allow you to do that, you're saying.
Right.
Well, no, you're in private school.
You can't hold them accountable for that.
No,
when they
public
turn the
school
assignment
they do,
in,
but
they turn the
Right.
assignment in.
Right.
If they learn it, in first semester, but then the light bulb goes off in second. They were actually telling me that in second 9 weeks, I should still be grading the work that they were doing in the first 9 weeks and counting it.
But that's public school, Orange County
that's
Public
what
School.
I'm saying. That's
yeah.
public school. That's
Well,
what's
not necessarily
happening.
just Orange. It means she was in Lake.
I've been in Lake County, Osceola,
Only when you're
Orange
working with
counties.
Seminole.
I haven't worked in Seminole. But I'm telling you, like, what are we doing? And I'm working in high school. I'm not talking elementary. I'm talking high school, the ones that are just about to go out into the real world. And we're not teaching them to be on time. We're not teaching them the importance of meeting a deadline, meeting your goals. We're not teaching that anymore.
Well, they don't. First of all, they don't teach accountability.
No.
They don't teach like basic skills.
So let me point something out.
So when we went to school, did you go take motor shop, wood shop, anything?
No,
like
I
that?
took wood shop.
I took wood shop too.
I don't like
But
cars.
my first car I bought was a 1979. I bought with my own money. Was a 1979 Chevy Malibu. And I remember looking at the owner's manual because I had to figure out what kind of oil went in it and all that other stuff. And it told you how to gap the spark plugs. It gave you all what your timing belt should be at and all this other stuff. Now you look at the owner's manual and it tells you not to drink the radiator fluid.
Right.
I mean, come on.
So let me bring a new point to the table, but it's over in a moment. And hang on, because I know you're going to blow a gasket. During the 8-year Obama administration, who was generally, no, we're not talking about his accomplishments, but he was generally perceived as being a president that people cared. Well, hang on. Let me say this. Hang on. Right. Common Core and teaching to test and all that. And I was always in disagreement with all that, but this is a different point. So during that 8-year tenure, just call it the 8-year Obama tenure. There is factual.
I got called a racist every other day. Yeah.
There is factual evidence that we as Democrats, me being one of them, we lost 1,000 local seats in government across the country, and that's been trending even after him. So there's a feeling amongst people that are watching that Republicans are taking over local seats all over the country in government, including school boards, which leads me to believe that it's Tucker Carlson says, have we become a country of a party of one? There is a feeling that the more we decimate public education, the more we build an underclass and a low-wage class. And I don't exactly blame that on liberals. I blame that on both parties.
I'm blaming it on.
I just see
the government in general.
Rick Scott, I can bring his name up. I know you're probably liking him. He was big time on shutting down campuses and going to online schools.
During what, COVID?
No, it was his thing. He was
he
advertising.
You could governor of Florida during
COVID. DeSantis
was he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
DeSantis. He was the whole thing. Yeah, from beginning to end. Yeah.
So in 2012, with the election between Obama and Mitt Romney, I was teaching 10th grade honors, and the teacher next to me, she was a liberal. So kind of like you guys, I was the conservative, she was a liberal, but we got along. And so we thought it would be great. She taught AP history, and I had my English class. We shut down, and for a month, we prepared our kids and taught them the election. So my class was, all my classes were going up against all her classes. So between my classes, we elected our own Republican president, Democratic president, and independent. And then those three picked their cabinet. And her classes did the same. And on election day, we filled out field trip forms, and we went into the auditorium, and we had debates. We looked at all the issues that they were debating back then, and our cabinet, so each cabinet member went up against each cabinet member, and we had a full-on debate. This was cutting edge. When have you ever heard of something like this happening in a school? So we invited all the administrators. Not one showed up.
Right. They don't want to, because they didn't want to get implicated in something that was going to turn out to be
we had other
politically
social studies
incorrect
classes come. We had everyone come.
Right.
And then we had the vote. We all voted. So at the end of the day, my Republican president beat her Democrat. Her Republican president, which was my former student, beat my Democrat, and my independent, who leaned Republican, beat her independent. And so at the end of the day, when I was leaving, my principal stopped me, and he was like, "Oh, how'd it go?" And I said, "Great, all the Republicans won." And he goes, "What? There's no room in education for Republicans."
Right.
And I go, "Well, really? Because there's room for me." And he was joking, and he said to her secretary, he goes, "Make note of that in her file, so when it comes time for her renewal."
Yeah. They're probably not joking, really.
No,
I know, I'm sure.
He
Well,
loved you.
me,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, but
Mr.
in the
his name was
public
Mr.
school,
Studley.
his name was Mr. Studley. Yeah,
Oh,
it took me
really?
about
Mr.
2 years
Studley?
to be able to say.
Did
it
you say
without-
his name?
Say it out
Mr.
loud.
Studley. He was
What up,
a great
Stud?
guy. But my point is, in the public school system, it's extremely liberal. It's extremely liberal.
is.
I'm a rarity in the public school system. Yeah, it is. I fly under the radar. And to bring Jesus in on top of it, forget about it.
So here's my thing that I've said. I love that kind of class, right, that you did, or that kind of exercise that you did,
I
right?
have kids
Because
on
how many
social
kids
media.
were looking at it going, "Oh my gosh, I'm a Republican."
So we did the I Side With. It's a website, I Side With, where you
Have
can
you ever
go
done it?
on and
No.
without seeing any of the political parties, it gives you the issues and it gives you answers, and you just click. So we took all the kids into the library, and we had them log on to I Side With, and they all read the issues for themselves, and they answered for themselves. And then once they get done, it shows them on a spectrum, and not just Republican, Democrat, if they fall green or libertarian or wherever they fall, and it will give them percentages, you're 92% this, and it will break it down.
And
it will show
a lot
them,
of people are Republican.
So I had one black girl, she looked horrified. And I walked over and I said, "What's going on?" She's like, "My parents are going to kill me." And I go, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "I'm 92% Republican." and it doesn't sway you. You just answer the way you feel you should answer. And then it just shows you which way you're leaning. But it goes to show, I really believe that a lot of kids just vote whatever their parents tell them to vote. And it's really just my parents were Democrat, now I'm a Democrat. My parents were
I'm not
Republican,
gonna
now I'm
lie.
Republican.
I learned my politics from my parents.
I learned my politics. I always say I believe I'm the voice of reason. My father went to my teachers and said,
So you're Fox News.
my teachers told my father he'll never learn to read. He's too dyslexic. So he said, essentially, he called bullshit. Said, "I'll teach him to read if you don't think you can." He taught me to read. What happened was then when I learned how to read, we used to take a walk to the library on Saturdays. Well, there wasn't Google. There was all these newspapers hanging on broomsticks or whatever the hell they were hanging on. And that's all I read was newspapers because I really found them interesting. So I formed an opinion.
The microfiche out?
I formed an opinion. And what I liked about the Republican Party, so if I were to answer that question, I would be a Republican. What is it called? Because that's a good thing.
I Side With.
I side with. If I were to do I side with, I would side with. But what I was telling Zach the other day is what I liked about the Republican Party.
But you might find you're right in the middle.
No, because the Republican Party is a down-to-earth approach. It used to be. Now they've grown their agenda into this enormous agenda, which
I don't even like to say I'm Republican.
As Tucker Carlson, yeah, we're conservative. As
Well, that's what Ted Cruz says.
Tucker Carlson says, and many people say, whether it's the right wing or the left wing, it's the same bird.
Right.
It is.
Yeah.
But okay, so when Obama was in office, he kept saying he wanted to fundamentally change our country.
Yeah, he used those words.
Right.
But he was an articulate man.
But Do
Here's a
you want
snake oil
to
salesman.
fundamentally change your
Well-
wife? Do you want to change her? Do you change what you love?
Have you met his wife?
I'm just asking.
She fundamentally tried to change him.
I'm a conservative because I want to conserve our country. I want to conserve our freedoms. I want to conserve what we're doing. I don't want to fundamentally change us.
Well, Obama gets a lot of credit for things he didn't accomplish. And so one thing, everybody thinks he was black. He sided with black kids. There's black preachers like
He knew how
Jesse-
to talk. He knew how to talk the talk with these group. He knew how to talk the talk with this group. Like
But-
he changed his vernacular.
he
whenever they
he
were going.
did. But for example, when Trump took over from Obama, it was Ann Coulter who said, if you want to do things with immigration and the border, just follow Obama's lead. Because he was not your typical Democrat when it came to the border. He was extremely strict on illegal immigration in
And his
America.
vice president was too at that time.
Right, extremely strict. When you think about the only presidency that downsized the federal government was Clinton, and that was Al Gore's job, to reduce government by 100,000 employees, which is a small reduction, but it was a reduction, whereas every other president has seen a significant increase, a lot more than that 100,000. So when you take the increase that didn't happen with the decrease that did happen, there was a big difference under the Clinton administration.
Right.
But Democrats will always tell, like you said, they will change their vernacular when they're talking to liberals. We're going to do this, that, the other thing, and take credit for things they've never done. Obamacare was never socialized medicine. It was never intended to be socialized medicine. And people don't realize socialized medicine won't work in America because insurance companies collect their premiums. That's called float once they have the money. The float's invested into the economy. They invest in all kinds of stuff. They pay their premiums. They pay out their expenses 10 years later when you finally get sick, but they have that money that whole time. If you were to take away private insurance from American health insurance, you would reduce the economy's abilities by 50% practically. So there was no Obamacare socialized medicine. All it did was, I like to say the Affordable Care Act became the Available Care Act. If you're really sick, you could still get coverage. You're not going to be precluded for having a pre-existing condition.
Yes and no, because when I was working for my own company and she took a year off from teaching, we went under the Affordable Care Act because we needed insurance. And I went to several different doctors who would not take it.
They won't, because that
They
was
said,
again.
you know what they said? Because we don't get paid. They
Right,
don't pay.
exactly. And that's again where we became a party of one. If Obamacare worked, they would have based it on a Medicare pay scale, not a Medicaid pay scale.
As Republican as I am, and this is the most left thing I think, I believe everybody should have insurance.
Or at least access to insurance, which is all
And
the
I
ACA
think insurance
did.
and pharmacy should be nipped and curtailed with their pricing, and people who need medicine,
Right.
diabetics, should have access.
But that
to it.
happened under
Right. And then-
Biden's watch, under the Build Back Better or the
He ain't
inflation.
build nothing back.
He enabled Medicare to negotiate drug prices, and it was
But I
Mitch
haven't seen it
McConnell.
change.
It has changed dramatically. And Mitch McConnell said, all this is going to do, this is a point I have to make, all this is going to do is minimize new research for new disease. And you know why that is? Because American pharmaceutical
So is that
companies...
why they let
Well, I'm good.
COVID loose? And
No, we'll get to that. But American pharmaceutical companies do most of the heavy lifting when it comes to developing new drugs. Then foreign companies steal them and make generics. So what happens is when you allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices, you cut the prices. So people are no longer doing without insulin since the Build Back Better package. But everybody just was, oh, it's just a giant waste of money. No, you kind of did the minimal you could do. You clipped pharmaceutical companies from gouging consumers. You clipped their ability. You enabled people to get medication they desperately need at a rate they can afford. And there's still no credit to Biden for doing that.
So on that note, I had an insurance company a couple of years ago, I don't remember, and one of my medicine I have to take the insurance company did not accept that medicine.
Right,
They wanted me to go under a different medicine, which actually made me sick.
right.
So I couldn't. So my doctor said, call the company, tell them what's going on, and see if they can help you out. They do scholarships or whatever.
Right.
So I called them, I explained to them. They looked into it and they said, sure, here's a year's supply, no cost to you.
They've done that for my nephew had
But
free.
if I went to go buy it now without insurance, it's $600 for 30 days.
Right. I have an eye drop that's $700 for 30 days.
That's like
with insurance.
I'll just go buy heroin on the guy at the corner.
No, it's not perfect. It's not perfect.
No, but I think, look, big farm. There's people who could use their medicines who are paying way too much for insulin because they don't have insurance, and like insulin's expensive.
Insulin's not a good example because there was that on Biden's watch that essentially has been somewhat resolved.
Viagra. People need Viagra.
Don't comment.
Up in the villages.
All right. Well, are we going to get back to education?
Back to education.
Well, hold on. I want him to tell you what's your.
Okay, so my
his
thing.
education.
Okay, my education. Okay,
He's not
100%
been
educated.
but-
I actually created an acronym. It's called OCAT, one class at a time. So what it is, it's basically successful living classes. How do you get a mortgage? How do you afford a mortgage? How do you?
So it's a high school level.
So my pastor, basically, God gave him the vision for the school back in like 2014, but told him it wasn't time. And so then in 2021, he said it was time. And so he came to me and his sister and he said, we're no longer going to complain about the problem. We're going to be the solution. So we started the school back in 2022, 2023. So our school is built on spiritualization, characterization, and education. Part of what we're doing is teaching kids about life. So they're going to learn life skills. They're going to learn how to change the tire on the car. They're going to learn about finances. They're going to learn about culinary and healthy eating and things like that. They're going to learn all of this stuff. So when they go out into the real world, we actually teach them etiquette. We teach them proper etiquette. We teach them to stand when an adult walks in the room.
They had an etiquette teacher taught them.
No, and I love that, but
why can't they do that in every school?
Well, I was going to say
so the vision is that once we get to 500 students, we are going to duplicate.
Right.
And he sees over 100 schools. Like it's going to grow. But here's the rub. Okay. So a public school gets over $14,000 per student. High school student. Let's just look at high school student. They get $14,000 for each kid that's enrolled in their school. We get half of that as a private school. We get half. But we have to pay for we have to pay for our own building. We have to pay for everything.
But why is that half? Why? How did that work out?
I don't know. You tell me. Why does the public school get this? Why shouldn't we get the same amount? If they're going to allocate that amount to
that, I don't understand.
Why shouldn't it?
And yet the public school is taking away wood shop, auto shop, band. They took away music.
But my feeling is, again, I can tell you, there was a guy.
55 private schools have had to shut down in this last year because they don't have enough money to keep running.
And that's just here in Florida.
And this is just here in Florida.
But what I just don't understand that. And then they pay charter schools an enormous amount to function.
Right, because charters still go under the umbrella
of public education.
That's where
right.
Go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic.
Smart.
But so my point was that what you're doing is exactly that, but put it available online and even make it incentive based. Rather than a kid go home and play video games, imagine if he finished a course online that taught him how to live healthy. I mean, he did it. He met the expectations. He did the final exam, whatever you want to call it, and he got, say, a $25 Amazon gift card for doing so. Make it incentive based. I think kids would pay less.
Are you ready for this?
Because there's kids. Because no, but there's kids that are
why?
left behind because they have no parents. They have nowhere to go.
Well,
I mean,
okay, and that we can go all the way back to the 70s because I blame feminists for that, 100%. And I'll tell every single female student that whole feminist movement is a bunch of crap, 100%. That was the demise of the nuclear family. Telling the woman that she can go out and make the money, she doesn't have to be at home, she doesn't need to be with her kids. That was the beginning of the end. And look where we are now.
Did your mom work?
Little compromises.
Oh, she did?
She did at night.
Okay, because my dad worked, and
my wife worked the whole time the kids were home.
I work too.
Well, she works too, but back in the day,
point,
most of the time it
and
wasn't
I'm
that
divorced,
way.
and he's divorced, and
Right.
they made divorce
we're married.
easy. Well, we came from divorce, but they've made divorce too easy, and now with all this.
But if
crap
it's too
that they're
easy,
doing now, but it's slow compromise. It's like the whole proverbial: you put a frog in the water and you slowly turn up the heat. He doesn't even realize that he's boiling, and that's what's happening. So it just started with this slow compromise. I used to tell kids all the time in high school, did anyone talk about being gay? Did anybody? bring
But
it
do
up.
they talk
Did
about it
anybody
now?
all the time?
All day.
It's ridiculous. I had he, she, they, them, all that crap
Where?
in my classroom, and I wouldn't tolerate it. I have a 7th grade girl who's in my school now who was completely traumatized because a boy came in the bathroom with her. Completely traumatized.
But that's allowed in your school?
No.
It was at
She
the public
she
school.
left the public school. Her parents got her out of there, but it took her like a good 6 months.
So that's allowed.
In public school, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
if he feels that he's a girl, he can use the girls' room.
Okay, so here's my question. If there were a way to stop it, how would you stop it? It would be legislation, right?
I don't know.
Because we're governed by the most popular conservative governor in the country. Why wouldn't they?
He's tried to stop it, but it's up to the individual schools. And I told you, public school is liberal. So they're going to side with the liberal. I taught in a middle school where they wanted the kids to all watch CNN 10 every morning. Guess what my class wasn't watching in the morning? Heck, not CNN 10. I had worship music on. I'm not starting out my
But you're
day
allowed, right?
with fake news.
You're allowed, right?
I don't care if I was allowed or not. I really don't.
See, I just think there's
I
a
said
certain...
Jesus and prayed over my kids every day. And if they wanted to fire me, then I'll be a martyr.
But they didn't.
No.
I don't think they knew either.
No,
a lot of them did.
No, it's not. There's nothing.
I told each principal that I worked for flat out. I go, you can't tell me I can't bring Jesus into the classroom because he goes everywhere I go.
The only point I'm trying to make is the movement's not as big as. I just don't understand why it's on so many people's minds. My kids don't
even go to the public school. I've been in the public school for 16 years. I know what's going on there. But I left it because it was getting so far gone.
I mean, I think they're going to a great school. I love their school, but it is essentially a public school, like you said. I mean, any kid's got that availability.
Right, but they're still under their own umbrella. They're not entirely tied to the public school. They have a little more freedom to do things. They're not under
the charter school.
I don't know any kid that's going to a public school, so I can't say that is not an issue. I just think it's become such a polarized issue, and I just don't experience it like people say.
And it's funny. Here's the real thing.
People are just saying it should be in my face every day. When I go to the public, I'm thinking I'm going to walk into the bathroom with a lady in there.
You never know.
Well, it depends on. I don't see well. I do walk in the wrong bathroom here and there, but.
We go to a gym, and there's a guy who dresses as a girl, and I've watched. He luckily hasn't gone into the ladies' room because I would correct him quickly. They'll throw me out though because they've done that before.
But
what I was getting at is, I was actually talking to a gay guy I know about the LGBTQ movement, and he's just like, first of all, the alphabet mafia is a joke. He says, as a gay person, I don't follow that. I don't believe in it. He goes, first of all, this whole thing with kids and drag queen reading stories and all that stuff. He goes, look, drag queens can do their things in their bars, 21 and over, not little kids. He goes, me as a gay man thinks that's if I had children, they would not be allowed to do that.
No,
and he said, but here's the funny story. He goes, LGBTQ, this big movement is in everybody's face. He goes, it's really only like 3% of the population.
It's not even that much. That's what I'm saying. Is I don't understand how it became such a polarized issue.
Because they're putting it right here.
I haven't experienced it, and I'm around people.
You must not watch TV at all.
No, I don't actually.
Well, there you go. You still read newspapers?
But when I'm teaching sixth graders, and I have sixth graders coming to me telling me that they're confused about their gender.
But how would you respond to that?
I'm like, well, clearly you're a girl.
Yeah, but what if they leave confused still?
Well, to me, you're a girl. God created you, and you're a
right.
girl.
That's a great expression. That's a great explanation.
But this is what I'm saying. Like, why are 11-year-olds coming to me telling me they're confused about their gender? Why are 11-year-olds watching horror movies? Why are 11-year-olds I had one 11-year-old tell me that I reminded her of an anime character, and I said, really? I don't know anything about anime. And they're like, it was about some horror school, and the whole premise of the school is you have to kill everybody to graduate, and I looked like the teacher.
Well, that's like video games. Video games are violent.
Right. And I had a sixth grader obsessed with Five Nights at Freddy. Obsessed
your kids watch that?
Five Nights at Freddy.
I don't know what that is.
Which is
it's a movie about, well, it's a movie, but it's also a video game. You get trapped in this it's like a Chuck E. Cheese.
Demonic Chuck E. Cheese.
Demonic Chuck E. Cheese, and you got to fight the zombies and all the other thingamajiggers.
find a picture of it. And this is when the kids were still like, they could come back to school, but they could still be online.
That was a big problem. I think and you say it all the time, the Democrats screwed the pooch on that.
On COVID.
And
on COVID was a mess.
Yeah. The kids should have never stayed home. It almost ruined her. Right?
No.
Luckily we got her the dog, so but she was kids her age who were in that year.
I never saw that game. But I could imagine my kids play it.
Your kids watch anime?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know really. My kids are
You
level-headed.
need to be more involved with
They're very level-headed.
You need to be more involved.
It's kind of like if they're not doing anything wrong, I'm not going to say don't do something wrong. I mean, you're almost opening the door to do something wrong if you tell them don't do something. But
your wife is also strict.
She's extremely strict, which is fine, which is good. But
you're the nice dad. You're the cool dad.
They receive her strictness well. So what am I supposed to do? Like interfere and be more strict? I don't know what to do.
Well, and another thing that the Common Core public schools are taking out is they're not teaching the kids the Constitution or the Declaration or the Bill of Rights. They're not teaching them that.
Well, I was going to say there's Sandra Day O'Connor. I think she's since died or retired. She's retired for sure from the Supreme Court. She published a civics course that's available to everybody online for free.
I would encourage all this year to my kids. And so my oldest daughter, who's 27 now, when we were talking about it, she goes, "What's the big deal, Mom?" And I go, "The big deal is if you don't know your rights, right? If you don't know you have freedom of speech, and you can say whatever you want, and they arrest you because you say something that the government doesn't like, but you don't know you have freedom of speech, you're going to remain locked up."
But just say you took that course,
which they now have that Trudeau passed that bill, or is trying to get it passed up in Canada. I know it's Canada,
right?
But did you hear about that? So
I heard something.
If you talk bad on the internet,
right? I did hear about it.
They can go back, and arrest you for it.
Well, I didn't know that, but I imagine, but so just take for example,
Nazi Germany, we're right next to now.
Well, no, because
he makes his Uncle Fidel proud.
So let's take one thing.
My middle schoolers
we'll talk about that in another show.
Know the 10 Commandments and they know their 10 Bill of Rights.
Right.
Backwards and forwards.
So take that. Just say the 10 Bill of Rights or the Sandra Day O'Connor's course. Put it available on the internet. Make it incentive-based, even though you're not a fan of incentive-based. And kids can actually, through however the incentives come around, through corporate sponsorships or whatever, and kids learn their rights and how America worked. That would move the conservative movement more forward.
So here's a funny thing.
Was a big financial contributor to Common Core. Coca-Cola was a big
only in Seattle. Bill Gates in Common Core, he only invests in education to Seattle.
Did you know he owns an acre of every farmland
into
in
products?
Right, but both parties want to do that.
Did you know that?
Right.
Oh, well, we agree that the bird is both wings.
That's why I feel strongly that the information. There's a thing called masterclass. All it is CEOs talking about how brilliant they are and
like
how
TED
they slip past the goalie. Like, no, TED Talks are really a lot better than master classes. Okay. They're more. I like TED Talks. I don't like master classes. But to just hear somebody say, "I succeeded. I became the CEO of this company by doing this, that, or the other thing," is not realistic. But to understand how to succeed and really have that information available to you and really have an incentive to spend time listening to it, I just think is the direction, because kids are really getting left behind.
100%.
A lot of them.
Or at the same token, we just keep lowering our standards.
But it also
so they're literally changing. Like it used to be 90 or above was an A.
Right.
The Orange County is now lowering it down to 85.
But we're not fooling anybody.
So what I'm saying is we may be giving diplomas to kids, but what does it
They're
really
worthless.
mean anymore? It is completely worthless.
Like when
how many kids walk and they don't even get a diploma, they walk
40,
to graduation.
My last year, a certificate of completion.
Yeah.
I tell them they should file it under T for trash.
Right.
But my last year in the public school system, I had 42 names written on my sheet of paper that were scheduled to get a diploma. And I didn't have one single document of paper that they did with their name on it that they ever stepped foot in my class. And so I went and I said, how are we giving these kids a diploma when they didn't pass English 4? But they did. I go, okay, stop. Getting a 50% for doing nothing is not passing.
Right.
We're giving trophies to kids who don't deserve it. And I argued with that. And I said, I don't feel right about this. I don't feel right sending them out. They can't read.
No.
I had seniors who maybe had I had to bring in books from when I taught middle school. And I had high schoolers telling me that those books were too hard. But I had sixth graders who could read it just fine. But I had 18 and 19-year-olds telling me they couldn't read it. And we're putting them out into the workforce.
And they're getting screwed because of it. So it's like Jim Carrey when he was
then
God
they're
in the
gonna revert
movie.
back to what they do best, which is steal and sell drugs.
Right.
So to that point, that's like Jim Carrey
One
when
of
he
my
was.
former students is the kid that
You
shot
know
the
what I'm talking
reporter
about.
in the face. Remember that a couple of years ago?
He
That
did?
was one of my students.
So he's still in jail, right?
Yeah.
That's
But
I don't know, he probably got released.
99%. I tell most of my kids, I'm like, if you don't want to better yourself and get
If
it,
there's a crime in the area, she looks at she's like, yeah, I taught
one
him.
of my kids.
But here's
Because
a
they go back. I had one kid who worked hard and he actually earned his diploma. Like he was a good student and so polite and kind. And I really enjoyed having him in class and I was excited to see him get his diploma. He's sitting in prison for life because as soon as he got out, he stole a woman's car, held her at gunpoint, robbed, and like ended up in prison. I was like, what? Why did he go through all that to earn his diploma only to go back to the streets?
So here's the funny thing, and I'm going to talk about incentivizing. When you were a kid, the biggest excitement about turning 17 was getting your driver's license.
right.
Right? You're 16 and a half, you go get your permit, then you learn how to drive with your parents or whomever, and then you get your driver's license. Well, now the kids can take it online. Right?
Yeah.
Yep, 100%.
And then as we learned with one of our younger boys,
You can just
he had
Google the
he Googled
answers.
everything.
On another computer.
Right.
Yeah.
And he took the test, passed
Right.
it. And then when he took his driving test,
Oh,
driving
so-
to the place.
Okay, so let me finish. So he's driving the car. I let him drive to go. So he's going to go take his driving. So we're at the light to turn left. So it turns a solid green, not the arrow. And he goes to turn, but a car's coming this way. And so I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like laying on the horn. And he's like, the light was green. I go, but you didn't have the arrow.
No.
And he goes, how was I supposed to know that?
Right.
I'm like, really?
Right. He has a laptop here and the test here.
Yeah.
But that's a movement. Everything's going
But that's
online.
why I think we have such crappy drivers anymore, is because
Right.
these kids are not learning the ways of the road. They're not learning. They're just Googling the answers. Kids don't know how to learn anymore. They just, like, most of the time in public school, they weren't supposed to have their phones out, but every kid had their phone. And they'd look at something on my thing and they just start Googling it.
I just see those life skills as being something. I always say kids never listen, but they're always listening. If it was something that they thought could make a difference in their life, the education in general is boring to kids. K through 12, English, math, grammar, social studies is boring to. But if kids really were learning something on their own time, at their own pace, to do with later on in life, how am I going to afford a car? I used to work with bartenders.
Well, now at the alternative schools that I've taught at, our math teacher, she took, it was called algebra, but basically what she did is she made it all about finances.
Right.
So she created individual folders for the kids. They had to pick their career that they wanted. And then she gave them what their salary was going to be. And she gave them checks and she gave them pay. So they'd get their paycheck and then they'd have to get their apartment. They'd have to figure out their grocery budget. They'd have to figure out all of that.
And that's the kind of thing we need.
Right. And that's what
Right.
they're doing. So there are certain teachers out there who.
Yeah, but you talk about incentivizing. I'm going to give you an example where I think it may not work because there's some kids who don't care. I'm going to use two examples. My mom offered my kids money to read the Bible. She says, I'll pay you $10 a chapter.
A chapter.
There's 1,100 chapters in the Bible, or 1,200.
She might have had to cut you off at some point if you're
Not
a real
me.
avid
No,
student.
the kids.
No, the
Yeah.
kids.
Oh.
Emily and Andrew. And Andrew's like,
I'm not reading
I'm
it.
not reading it. I'm like, dude, that's like $1,200. He goes, not worth it.
Well, that's true.
And
that
then I had
it's not
another one.
nothing. There is no one size fits all for anything.
And then I
But
had
it
another
would
one who I
work.
incentivized and said, look, I want you to mow the yard. I'll teach you how to use it. And then I'll give you more time on your Xbox. He says, you can take my Xbox away. You're not going to catch me out there mowing.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? That's
So
that's an
sometimes-
example of a caring parent, a caring grandma, and kids taking that for granted.
Right.
Then you got kids that go home to an empty house where their mom is passed out on crack. There's no food in
there's
the
the
fridge.
problem,
And if you're
you know?
if you're incentivizing him with a Walmart gift card, what he really realizes he can get bacon and eggs for the morning. It may be different. I mean,
Look,
you don't.
One of our kids that we adopted was in that environment. Mom died from a drug overdose.
Right.
Never knew who his dad was.
Right.
Now he
Living
knows.
in a group home.
He knows who's dad.
So I mean,
But if he had during that time of
so
that
we
group
adopted
home,
him and got him out of the group
No,
home.
he is incentive. He is money motivated.
right? And if he during that time in that group home, or kids, kids that they time out of foster care at 18. They're at 18 on their birthday. They have to find an
I
apartment
know.
with a per diem that doesn't even cover an apartment, and they still have to find a way to work or
Right.
find a job.
Right.
And you know what they
Which
do?
most 18-year-olds aren't even done with high school yet.
Right. And you know what the problem is they realize
And
the
they
only thing
start
they have to
stealing
barter
cars or-
over and above their older competition is themselves.
They
So
start
that's how
stealing
you
or-
grow the sex
So-
trade.
Or they
Public
start selling
school-
drugs.
Public school
Right.
does not is not in the business of helping our kids.
No.
So that's why I got out of the mainstream public schools and I went into alternative schools. One of the schools that I was at, we worked with kids who were in those situations where a lot of them had to earn money for their families. So we had a day school program and we had a night school program. So
Right.
kids could go to school during the day and then come to school at night,
You
or
work
come to
during
school
the day
during the
and go
day,
to-
or go to work at
Right.
night. And we worked with them, and 2 of their grades could be from their work. We would accept that as part. We'd make that a part of their grades.
But they had to prove it that they were at work. Like
Right.
they had to bring their
Yeah, I
time
had
card
that.
and
I used to
stuff.
go to work
Right.
there. But
So
I had to get
there
signed.
are schools out there, like we're trying to make a difference. There are charter schools, alternative schools, schools that are trying to do the right thing by these kids, understanding that a 16-year-old kid doesn't have a dad and his mom can't work, and so now he's working 2 jobs, and how is he supposed to go to a regular public school?
And on a side
And-
note, I'm going to bring this up. One of our children became a Republican or conservative because she was very liberal, because she got her first job and then looked at all the taxes and all this other stuff coming out
Oh
of
my
it. She
gosh,
says, "What's
she-
this for?" Well, it's got
But-
to pay for welfare. She goes, "Wait, I'm paying for people on welfare? Yeah, it's taxes." And she instantly became a Republican.
Well, you know what? The only welfare to work program that was actually put in place was, by who? Bill Clinton.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I've-
But when
I've
we
never-
keep
I've
people
never
dependent
taken
on the
unemployment.
government, then we're never going to get them off.
I've said all along, but I think that
Only time I've taken
it's
from
easy-
the government is when we needed.
it's
health
easy to
insurance.
say, let's get rid of all the social programs. Let's get rid of welfare. Let's get rid of Social Security. I say do a stress
Social
test.
Security ain't going to be around when me and you.
You
retire.
don't know that because they always find a new way to finagle it for another 20 years. But do a stress test. Are you informed enough to do your own investing? If you are, you should be able to opt out of getting that Social Security deduction.
My
You wouldn't
grandfather
be.
did.
He opted out.
Mhm.
That's not an option no more. I would opt
He
out.
never took it because he
Because
didn't
he
feel
was
like he.
very rich.
Well, but I mean, he earned his money, and
But
so
he was still
said-
paying into it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
but
never
he never
can.
took from it.
Right, but you have to. I would like to see where you could say, I don't want to pay
Did you
into
ever
it. I
take
want to do it.
unemployment?
No,
Me neither. I wouldn't even know how.
I don't even know how.
No.
Right, I don't either.
I remember when I was.
People were telling me I was working at Gators during COVID, and they're like, you could be making more not working here. And then
Right.
people were getting $900 a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
stay home.
Yeah.
I made more than that, so it doesn't matter. I wouldn't take.
I wasn't making that working at Gators.
Right. But when I was married to my first wife, I ended up in the hospital. My appendix ruptured, and I was out of work. And they recommended, because the hospital bill was ridiculous, obviously, and I didn't have insurance. So because I used to not get insurance because it cost too much out of my paycheck, and I just wanted to make sure my family got the money.
Right.
So the hospital suggested I go talk to I don't even know what health services department from the government to help them pay for it. I went in there, and literally my ex and I sat in there and listened to this person. We explained everything. First of all, they could care less. They weren't even listening. Like, yeah,
Right.
And they're like, well, we might be able to help, whatever. And I walked out of there, and I'm like, I don't know how we're going to pay this bill, but I'll never do that again.
No, what's the
That's
point?
not me. But there's people who live on that. I had a girl. I was in the automobile industry, as you know, for almost 30 years. And I worked for a while in the buy here, pay here industry. The dealership sold, but we had a buy here, pay. And I was really good at it, so they always put me in it. I was the finance, the man with the finance plan. But I had a lady come in, and she's filling out her credit app. And she was getting $3,500 a month on SSI.
That sounds like a lot.
And I said to her, I said, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" Because SSI is a medical thing.
Oh.
And she goes, "Oh, it's for my girls." I said, she had 3 daughters.
Oh.
And I said, "Are they okay?" She says, "Yeah, they got the ADHD." And she got $3,500 a month.
Well, there
And
are.
I said, my parents should be millionaires because I'm half retarded.
There
We're
are.
not supposed to use that word. Sorry.
No, that's a terrible word.
Terrible
Use a
word.
condescending tone, especially when they're
I
so
was
special.
condescending towards me.
Yeah, but you use that word.
It's all liberal
love-
hurt.
Well, my son's ADHD. We never.
Right, we didn't get no money. We should be.
Well, you
rich.
didn't apply for it,
No.
and I
But
agree.
wouldn't
I don't know
even
that I would know
to
how.
do it. I wouldn't even know how to do it.
I would never. I don't know that I would know how if I got laid off tomorrow.
But
As I've said,
But
I've
people
said
were
a
telling
million
you to
times.
go on disability because of your
Yeah, when I
trigeminal.
trigeminal, when I did brain surgery,
that is a disabling condition.
it was.
Yeah.
But
Right.
guess what? I went to work every day, and my brain surgeon was stymied. He goes, "How do you function with all the medicine you're on?"
Right.
I said, "Bro, my family got to eat." And they probably got to go outside, but we got to wrap this up.
Yeah.
shortly.
Yeah.
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 But I mean, so
We just
so
got to
there's-
do it again. This is
So
great.
there's so many things that need to be corrected. The rudder, I don't know that the rudder can be realigned. I think the rudder's broken.
Well, it is, and we all agree that it's not
'Cause
broken
the-
by one red
'cause-
or blue. It's
'cause
broken
there's
by
us-
both in collusion. I love that word.
Collusion.
Well, yeah, because if you look
Russian
at
collusion.
who's part of the Agenda
He's with the
21 and
pajama
who
man.
all, I mean, you can trace it all the way back to George Sr.
Well, you can.
Have you looked at Agenda 21?
I just heard about it. I even expressed my confusion about it when she first mentioned
Well,
it.
and then if you want to look, when
You're normally
Bill
confused.
Gates, before all of COVID happened in fall of 2019, he was doing a run through called the Event 201 in New York City. And they were planning on what it would look like if we had a
Pandemic
worldwide
happened.
pandemic. And it was called Event 201.
Well, even
Take the O out, and what do you have? 21. It's all
Yeah, I wouldn't be
under the
surprised.
same
But COVID
guise.
again was a crazy scenario. I know
Look,
Democrats.
I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not anti. I didn't ever jump on the ship and say it didn't happen because I had friends who died from it. Right? It was a sickness.
But nobody's dying from it now. That's why they don't
But
understand.
it was the flu, and they just gave it
Well,
another
no,
name and
it was-
scared everybody.
It was a pandemic because the flu doesn't spread like that amongst
I have
billions.
a friend who got the vaccine. Who he's a sick dude, so he needs it, because his immune system's probably not up to snuff. I'm healthy. I don't need it. I ate dirt and lead as a child. Trust me, no COVID, no anthrax is going to.
But did you get
What it's called.
vaccinated?
No.
No, you didn't.
No, I'm pure blood.
Because the only thing I'm saying is
But I also have a friend who was healthy, and because of his job, he was forced to get the vaccine. And an underlying heart issue they didn't know about the
killed
vaccine
him. Killed him. Yeah.
Killed him.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. It is sad, but it doesn't surprise me. But to say it was a pandemic
It was
is
a
based on the
scandemic.
rate of spread and the
Scandemic.
amount of people getting it. That's how you come to that category. That's
Right,
all it is.
But did
So
you notice
now-
those years that that the pandemic was going on? The flu was at zero. Nobody had.
Well,
the
no,
flu.
they say that's because of the people covering them with masks.
But you notice what they did is they silenced the church. They silenced the church, right? A lot of churches closed. And to me, that's when all the nonsense started to erupt.
Well, and I said just
And
that's
I'm
a
like,
fact.
that's a taste of what it's going to be like in Revelation when when the rapture happens and all the Christians and everyone's taken away and everyone's left with no one with no morality or anything like that. That's a taste.
But it
of
never
'Cause
lasted. That's why I have
there
no
are people
fear.
living right now with no morality.
Right.
No morality.
But it never lasted. I mean, I
Right,
get
I'm just
it.
saying,
That's
it's
what.
a taste. I'm telling you, it's a taste.
Yeah, but it'll
when
never
you silence the
happen.
church like that, look what came out of it. All of this fantasy world that
Oh.
people want to live in.
You're like,
That
wieners?
they now want to say that there's more than one sex. Get out of your 6th grade biology. I took science all the way through high school. I was XY. That's it. There is no more.
I just don't see it being a problem. I just don't see it like that. So you talk about the churches being silenced or not being able to congregate or the whole not being able to be in a group. And I always said that's one of the reasons Trump was so revered. He said they should be able to congregate. It went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, yes, they can congregate. So again, my point isn't Trump or anybody. My point is the movement is there in favor of congregating if you choose to congregate.
But it was a
Well,
big.
to say it's a
battle.
concern.
No, there was a huge battle. We went
Lost.
We went to a wedding in Chicago.
But they
were
lost.
the only 2 people not vaccinated. We were treated like pariahs.
That was
Nobody
them.
wanted to be around us because that's what the world was telling them.
Only half the world.
I
But
knew these
still,
people for 30 years, and I walked up to give someone,
You haven't been vaccinated.
I'm not kidding. That's how I was treated.
I work in some rougher neighborhoods, right? I still have people answer the door wearing a mask.
No, I know. I never wore a mask, but I got vaccinated. I am a fan of vaccinations. I've been to countries where nobody gets vaccinated. I've seen the death rate. I've seen the sickness. I've seen in Asia,
but
people die
often. I got no problem with some vaccines.
No,
but they're tested. You guys were guinea pigs.
The particular vaccination was.
You turn on any TV and we've got commercials talking about all sorts of crazy medicines.
Oh, just watch them. I just wait to hear what the side effects are.
Right? All medicines are crazy at this point.
The side effects are awesome.
Keytruda and it killed him.
Right.
Okay, my mom just took this new blood thinner called Eliquis, and she broke out in hives from the top of her head all the way down. My mom also is dealing with a mass on her liver, which they now say can be contributed to tamoxifen because she was a breast cancer survivor. And you had to take tamoxifen for 5 years. And now they're saying that this is a side effect that they're now seeing happening in women. So
every medicine, just like one of the reasons my cornea went out is because of my glaucoma drops, because they have a preservative that
just smoked weed.
Because the preservative eats up the cornea over time.
Every
medicine has an adverse effect.
So I go to a holistic chiropractor, and he looked at my meds one time, and he was just like, "Look, man, I don't even know how you're alive because we don't know what this med does with this med. And this med does.
The cocktails are a problem too.
Right,
they are.
And I do take a cocktail. She accidentally one time, and we could go into another show. We're going to do that because we got to wrap up. We've been rambling, but she accidentally took my meds one morning.
Oh, that's
I had to rush her to the hospital.
Right.
Because she felt weary and weak because her blood pressure plummeted. And
he has high blood pressure.
She doesn't.
Diabetes. So I
got the diabetes.
The diabetes.
Yeah. We got to let the dogs out. And
who let the dogs out?
Now you're going to get barked at.
Right?
No, he didn't say a word. They're warming up to me.
Well, I think we went down enough rabbit holes for today.
Wow, look at you jumping in the podcast.
Yeah, she's a natural. Yeah. You're hired.
I doesn't pay much. Here, let me show you the intro. You can do it yourself. Guys, we really thank you for watching, and we enjoyed it. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Tell us, are we really the idiots?
We are. Now we got 2 idiots. And
now there's 2 idiots. And,
maybe we just call it Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast.
People say that all the time, but I got lucky. My wife's blind, so don't she thinks I look like Brad Pitt.
Let me explain to her
in detail.
That's a misconception.
But we're gonna sign off for now. We love you. Thank you. Please comment. Please leave your notes. Let us know what you think. Give us your rabbit hole conspiracy theories, everything else, and we will catch you all on the flippity flop. Love ya.
See ya.
Peace. Let me keep this. You gotta hit stop.
I will.